Nearly a year ago, Syracuse Lacrosse ventured to South Bend and suffered a lopsided loss indicative of a season that was turbulent both on and off the field. This year, the Irish gave the Orange deja vu. But this year's turbulence was a bumpy plane ride that left the Orange tired.
But today, we didn't show up.
On the heels of a historically bad loss, Syracuse now pivots to the state capital with a chance to rebound. But with 4 ranked opponents following UAlbany, the time to build momentum is now or never. It's Syracuse and UAlbany on Cuse Countdown. And welcome back into the lovely Cuse Countdown studios. Sam Lebowitz alongside Leo Silverman and Spencer Pierce getting ready for Syracuse and UAlbany in an interstate lacrosse matchup. But before we can talk Great Danes, we got to recap last time out. And as you probably heard, it was ugly, like historically ugly. Notre Dame slapped the Orange silly 22-6. And it was SU's most lopsided loss since Hobart beat Syracuse 24-8. In April of 1977. Gary Gait had just turned 10. Saturday's spanking in South Bend marked the most goals SU has allowed this year and the least that they've scored, and it rang familiar for the Orange. Last year in South Bend, they only mustered 2 more scores in a 22-8 loss. So 2 trips to Notre Dame in 2 years and a 30-goal margin for the Fightin' Irish. But this trip in particular seemed cursed from the outset. It took Syracuse 2 different planes to get to Indiana thanks to mechanical issues, and they didn't touch down on the tarmac until the early morning. And given how sluggish they looked, maybe they shouldn't have shown up at all. Syracuse didn't score until the second quarter, and that goal made the Irish lead 12-1, which means, of course, they started the game on a 12-0 run. For reference, Irish junior Jake Taylor, who wound up with a program record 8 goals, had 4 goals entering the second quarter. Syracuse at that point had just 3 shots on goal. And after beating Duke the week prior, Syracuse, they got humbled.
Yes, Sam, they certainly got humbled, and struggled is a very easy way to put it. But my quick hit, I'm going to focus on the bad passing. Listen. We're talking about a Syracuse lacrosse team that is 11th in the nation in turnovers at about 15 per game. For reference, they were at 13 a game last year, so a steep jump up. It's a lot of problems for this SU offense, and it's really because they're void of a pass-happy attacking player, but also they turn the ball over in 5 of the 7 first offensive possessions against Notre Dame. This all culminates in what has been an abysmal passing attack for Syracuse so far this season.
Well, that wasn't the only thing that was abysmal. The team was abysmal. Sam, you just touched on it. They didn't land in South Bend until 1:30 in the morning. Is that supposed to be an excuse? This team went down 1, 2, 3, 4-0, 5-0. You get the point, right? Sam already told you about it. This team showed no effort. They were disengaged. They probably couldn't have even fogged up a glass.
And it wasn't just bad passing or a lack of effort that plagued Syracuse and Indiana. Let's throw it to Leo at the wall to break down what broke down for the SU defense. Leo?
Well, Sam, when we're talking about this SU defense this far into the season, they've really just been way too bipolar. Some games they shut down some of the best offenses in the ACC, and other games they look like they don't even know they're playing lacrosse, to be honest with you. We'll start with the first one there, and we're going to look at the SU versus Duke game here where they were completely solid. And we'll move into this clip. Look at Nick Kakemo's face guard on this attacker, forces him all the way to the outside. He has to clear it to the X-Man, but it's not just about Kakemo because we're going to pause it here. Look at the defenders. Great man-on-man defense, and they're pressuring the middle to make sure nothing goes inside there, and they force out the attacker from Duke into a turnover here. That turnover not only got them the ball, but it led to an easy goal on the clear. So SU's defense in that game not only being stout, but providing for the offense. The same cannot be said for this Notre Dame game we're going to look at next, where they were completely abysmal. We're going to roll into South Bend here. You're going to watch it. We just roll this play through there. Notre Dame's going to clear to the outside. Nick Kakemo of the last clip, hero play, not here, completely useless double, and we're going to pause it here. Look how scattered the defense is. We have 3 guys stuck on the outside. Nobody playing that middle like I talked about being so important, and that's exactly where the Irish are going to go with it. Easy pass to the middle. Bobby Gavin can't do anything if the middle is completely wide open, and SU's defense gets completely trounced really early in the game. So when we're talking about this SU defense, it's really about stringing together some consistency, Sam, because if they look like they did against Notre Dame, they're not going to be winning a whole lot of lacrosse games.
You're right, Leo. Thank you so much for that. That sends us into this week's By the Numbers. Let's start with 12.3. I alluded to it near the top of the show, but that number is the average margin of victory in the last 3 matchups between Syracuse and Notre Dame. And remember, Notre Dame scored those first 12 goals in the game on Saturday. Leo, what is in that Indiana water that's got the orange so spooked?
Sam, I really couldn't tell you. I have no idea. But what I can tell you is the goal difference between Syracuse and Notre Dame in 2 of those last games. 40 goals Notre Dame scored on Syracuse. And for reference, Spencer, our Syracuse basketball team held Notre Dame to 42 points in a basketball game in 1 half. So just astronomically crazy numbers. And the crazy thing is, Syracuse was favored in some of these matchups. You know, in 2021, number 4 SU versus number 9 Notre Dame, they lose bad. And in 2019, number 8 SU versus number 12 Notre Dame, they lose that one very handily as well. So just so many issues with this Notre Dame-Syracuse matchup.
Plenty, and I think a huge issue we're not touching on is they got to play them again, right?
Yeah,
and that
worst part.
Is really, really bad. I'm going to give you a quick stat right now. Syracuse is averaging a 12-point loss, as we know. Their average goal against Notre Dame in the time that they've played each other, 11. Syracuse is, I mean, we could go blow for blow here. What was it? The basketball team scored 42 points?
42 and a half. And they gave up 40 goals in 2 games.
I thought this was beat the bookie. Sorry.
So we should move on to our next number. That's a lot of numbers there all on its own. Between an inconsistent defense and an underperforming offense, we know having a big score margin is probably a given. So let's give some attention to the offense with our next number. That's 4. That's the combined amount of goals at Notre Dame for Tucker Dorotovic, Brennan Curry, and Owen Seabold, a low number that needs to change moving forward. Spencer.
Just pass the ball, fellas. It's really not that hard. So an assist is when you pass the ball and the person you pass it to scores. It also goes on your stats and it counts as a point. So you would think that some of these guys want the stats and want the points, but what they're playing right now, they're selfish. They're only playing for the goal part of the points. They're playing way too much hero ball. They're not stretching out the defense. It is a really, really bad offense, and for them to only have 4 goals, those are your leaders, right? You need those guys to step up, and if they're not stepping up in big games, this team is donezo, if they're not already.
Exactly, Spencer. And to throw some numbers at you, we look back, we compare that. Don't be scared of your numbers. I'm going to give you one. It's not too big of one here. But we look at the Duke game versus Notre Dame game. Those guys that Sam just talked about, they scored 9 of the 14 goals for Duke in that win. And against Notre Dame, they're just completely absent. It goes back to this reoccurring theme that I hate to bring up over and over again. This team is so wishy-washy in so many parts of their game. I don't know what to make of them.
Well, neither do I, Leo, but from 4 to our last number, 15, that's the amount of shots saved by Notre Dame in that game, 13 of those by Liam Entenmann. And for Syracuse, reigning ACC Offensive Player of the Week and current very good player Tucker Dorotovic was held to just 3 shots on goal the entire game. That stone wall in the Notre Dame net was a great deterrent for the SU offense, right, Leo?
Yeah, Sam. I mean, my biggest takeaway from all those saves is that Liam Entenmann is one of the best goalies in the ACC, if not the best. 13 of those saves, by the way, were him. 2 were because SU was getting beat so bad that they brought in a backup goalie, and he found his way.
They felt bad.
They felt bad, and he still got 2 saves at the end of the game. So, you want to look at it and say 15 saves. Oh, Syracuse was getting some good shots, but you heard it mentioned they were down 12-0. All right, Notre Dame's defense didn't care about playing this game with that score line, so I don't even count that because nobody's trying on the Notre Dame defense. So the offense is going to get some free shots when they're losing that bad.
I mean, listen, Entenmann is good, but here's a jarring stat. Syracuse has not scored more than 11 goals against Notre Dame since 2015.
Wow.
We were in 8th grade.
Yeah.
I didn't even think about college. I wasn't even thinking about that yet. That is embarrassing.
Who are the orange?
I don't know.
Carmelo
it's just the
Anthony
color
went there?
at this point. I don't even know what's happening. Just score some goals. It's really not that hard.
Oh, we're just getting started on Cuse Countdown, and it is important to discuss the past, but this is a pregame show, so we'll look to the future. We'll get you familiar with the Great Danes of UAlbany on the other side of the break. Don't go anywhere. Cuse Countdown rolls on with Sam Lebowitz, Leo Silverman, and Spencer Pierce. Syracuse Lacrosse is down I-90 this week to take on UAlbany. And anytime Syracuse squares off against an interstate rival, tension seems to perk up. From Long Island to the Finger Lakes, New York State has many storied lacrosse programs, but UAlbany has more of a complicated history. From its start in 1970 until 1997, this was a Division III program. Before head coach Scott Marr took over in 2001, the Danes were 10 games under 500 all time, but Marr's changed things up. The Danes have found themselves in 4 NCAA tournaments in just that first decade, 2001 to 2011 alone. But as Spencer tells us, the most recent decade of the program has been marked by the success of a family who brings New York State lacrosse back to its roots.
Lyle and Miles Thompson. In 2013, the Thompsons, along with their cousin Ty, scored 259 points at the University of Albany. In 2014, the pair of brothers shared the Tewaaraton Award. Miles holds an NCAA record for scoring in every single game he played in, while Lyle holds the record for most career points in Division I and second most career assists. He also won the Tewaaraton Award again in 2015. The statistics for the Thompsons are obviously eye-catching and out of this world, but what if I told you that in 2014, when they won the Tewaaraton, it was the first time a Native American had won it? Now you might be wondering, why am I surprised? Well, not only is lacrosse the oldest organized sport in North America, but the game was and continues to be heavily influenced by the Native American people. The cultures and traditions of the Native Americans are deeply rooted into the sport that we love today. Perhaps the biggest story has been the Irish men's lacrosse team dropping out of the 2022 World Games of Lacrosse in order for the Iroquois to be represented after they were wrongly denied from the games. The Irish were adamant about the Iroquois team being included in the game. Created to be left out was especially to the youth, is representation. Instead of criticizing the culture, many have become more immersed in it and learned about the traditions. Instead of the World Games missing, quite literally, the creators of the game, many Native Americans globally can watch their people with pride and excitement. So where to go from here? Miles Thompson said it best. Things are changing, and anything that's growing is something good.
Well, the Thompson bros set this stage, but Syracuse assistant coach T.D. Erlin says UAlbany has remained able to develop talent since they left.
In terms of their personnel and the people they have in that program, like that's what makes them unique, right? Their approach to the game and their free-flowing style, like they really created something. And I mean, if you look at the people, the players they had about a 6-year stretch with Twarton finals. Right?
Guys, so they've obviously come a long way in a short period of time. What do you make of that?
I mean, for me, it's just, great job building off the Thompsons, because obviously they've given you so many great years, but they've still been able to hang around and have some good teams and some big wins since they left.
Yeah, I mean, this isn't the case where we were talking about in football season when Syracuse played Albany, that it wasn't a worthy opponent of anyone's time. Jeff Undercuffler, under center, I'm sure you remember it.
Sam remembers.
This is a legit program, and the Thompsons brought them to that prominence. Now, did he not listen to my explainer? Because he was like, oh yeah, they had a few Tewaaraton winners. Just listen.
You should have listened to it.
It's not that hard. I can send it to you. We transfer. It's easy.
Well, Spencer's the expert here. He did the research, and thanks to Spencer, we're filled in on the background of the program. But let's look at what they're bringing to the table right now. It's time to meet the Great Danes. So from north of the border, meet Albany's points leader, Graydon Hogue. Hailing from Ontario, the 5'9 junior packs a punch. In addition to his team-leading 20 points, Hogue has notched 12 goals this season. We just finished talking about the Thompson brothers. Albany likes to keep it in the family. Hogue's sister, Briar, has 11 points of her own on attack for the Albany women's team. And get this, their dad says they have nearly identical styles of play. They wish each other luck before each match, they watch each other's games, and they break down how they did afterwards. How wholesome. But Leo, Hogue's not just the only weapon on this Danes team, right?
Yeah, Sam, it's not the only weapon, and it's not their best weapon. Meet Corey Junker. He's so good. He's been so hot lately. I'm giving him my own nickname, the Junkmeister. Look out for this guy. 13 goals in the last 5 games, including a season-high 5 goals in their last win. He's the current America East Player of the Week. If Syracuse doesn't look out for the Junkmeister, it's going to get ugly.
All right, we're not talking about the Junkmeister. We're getting double stuffed. Give it to me, Tommy Heller, baby. He has been splitting time with Jack Van Valkenburg, but Tommy Heller started off the season on a roll. Unfortunately, he has been getting trounced in goal, so Van Valkenburg has kind of taken over the time in net. Van Valkenburg started the last game, so it's up to the coach to see if we're going to see Tommy Hauer in net against the Orange.
So records-wise, Albany isn't the most impressive team on paper. They're 3-5. It's important to note one, let's call it a scheduling quirk. Earlier this month, they matched up against Maryland, the #1 team in the nation, and the Terps put up 24 points. But beyond this, the Danes' defense hasn't been quite so bad, Leo.
Yes, Sam, the Danes' defense, they give up 22 goals against those 2 ranked opponents, Cornell and Maryland. You brought it up. They've been pretty good against conference opponents. My problem here, though, Spencer, is they're going against a non-conference ranked opponent in in Syracuse. So that's all I've got to say on that one.
I mean, listen, 4 of the teams that they played are within the top 35 of offensive production throughout the country. The most goals they gave up to any of those 4 teams was 14. So, like we said, really not that bad of a group, just kind of unlucky.
So when we come back on Cuse Countdown, we're cooking something up in the lab. Spencer and Leo join me to figure out what ingredients are missing in Syracuse lacrosse. Stay with us.
Did you hear about the pony with a sore throat? He was a little horse. Can I tell you a cat joke? Just kidding. Why couldn't the Why was the basketball court all wet? Why? Because the players kept dribbling all over it. Where did cats go on vacation? New York.
Welcome back to Cuse Countdown. I'm Sam Lebowitz alongside Leo Silverman and Spencer Pierce. As Syracuse preps for UAlbany, we're prepping by cooking something up in the lab. I forgot my lab coat, excuse me, but welcome to CC Labs. These guys are my lab assistants, and they're going to tell me the missing ingredients in some compounds that make up the SU lacrosse makeup. Starting simple, Tucker Dorotovic is a pretty good lacrosse player. He's got a recent ACC Offensive Player of the Week under his belt. Did so with a flourish. Nice goal there. But if he's going to take himself and this team to the next level, Leo, what does he have to add?
Sam, I'm going to go back to what we were just talking about. Mention, Thompson brothers. Give Tucker Dorotovic the Thompson brothers leadership. Listen, we talked about how the Thompson brothers, we talked about Coach Marr resurrected the Great Danes, but without Thompson brothers, they don't do very much. So with that leadership to carry that team, you got to give that Tucker Dorotovic. Listen, I hate the state of Syracuse lacrosse right now, men's lacrosse, but they have to see Tucker Dorotovic score multiple goals to win any games. And if he's not being the leader that will take that mantle and do that night in and night out, this ACC schedule coming up is going to be brutal.
No cap detected. Now, Leo.
None.
I have Tucker Dorotovic needs to adopt Emma Tyrell's mentality. I'm going to tell you why.
Love it.
Though she may not be the statistical best player on the women's team, 30 goals, 20 assists. Remember what I said in the beginning of the show? They need to pass. Remember, pass the
passing,
ball, pass the ball more.
Right.
How could you not, like that is the most all-around player on the women's team, and if Tucker was able to take some of those intangibles. Just pass the ball every once in a while. We get it, you're good. Score as many goals as you want.
Let me get this straight. I wrote it down. Pass the ball? Pass the ball.
Okay. Well,
let's head home. For me at least, Bergen County, New Jersey native Brett Kennedy has had an inconsistent season in the midfield. His lone 2 points of the year came in the Hobart game, but he's also forced 8 turnovers. Spencer, what do we add to Kennedy's mix?
Well, we're adding to Kennedy is the booming voice of our CitrusTV friend Liam Griffin. Because if everyone on the team knew where they were supposed to go and knew where to be, this team may have won only 2 games all year. His communication, I'm not saying it's bad, I never played with the guy, but it's clearly not great.
It can't be.
Because he is the anchor in the midfield, and for him to be letting all of these defensive miscues up, and then for the offense, remember say it with me, passing the ball. He's just got to be more vocal and tell his teammates what exactly it is that he wants.
Vocal is a good one, Spencer, but for me, Brent Kennedy. Effort! E-F-F-O-R-T, effort. This guy is the most dynamic player on this Syracuse team.
Were you in a spelling bee?
I maybe did. Okay, maybe. We'll find out later. But he's the most dynamic player on this SU team when he tries. Sure. I mean, he's one of the better defenders at long stick midi. He carries the clears and sometimes creates great opportunities on the offensive end off those clears. When he tries, we just need some consistency. So I just need to give him some simple effort and maybe a bit of spelling help, possibly. I mean, I got effort right in the spelling bee, right, Sam?
Yeah, I think my notes say that you spelled it correctly. We talked defense earlier today with you, Leo. Now we're going to talk offense. They scored 28 goals in their first game of the season, did SU, but they've yet to cross the 20-goal threshold since then. In fact, they've only scored more than 15 once. Leo, what sugar or spice or anything nice can we add to this offensive unit to fix them?
Sam, I'll tell you what's really nice they could add to this offensive unit. Pat Cavanaugh, one of the best passing attackers from that Notre Dame team that just absolutely rinsed them. I mean, you talk about some of the statistics. This guy in 2021, career high, 38 assists. That's 8 more than the Golden Boy Stephen Rafis of old Syracuse ever had. So they just, in all reality, need a pass-happy attacker, and this offense will turn around just like that with Curry and with Dorotovic.
Well, luckily they have someone in-house, and that's Owen Hiltz. But that's not my answer. Give me Brendan O'Neill. The guy is one of, if not the best player in men's college lacrosse. And this is a freebie. There's no salary cap. There's no trades to be had. This is just a hypothetical. Here we are, right?
Yeah.
It's just negotiations. Brendan O'Neill, get your butt over to
Wear some orange, baby.
Wear the orange. Him and Tucker Dorotovic would be
filth.
An unbelievable duo. Some are saying the best since the Thompson brothers.
And they would pass the ball.
Wow, way to bring it back full circle, guys. If it was that easy to bring in players, the Mets would have Mike Trout. We're in the home stretch on Cuse Countdown, but before we send you off to Albany, we've got to give our predictions, that and more, in 60 seconds.
I see you mobbing over her. Let's go. Let's mob. Let's crawl. Let's crawl. Let's crawl. Hey, yo, we mobbing. Come on, girl. Let's crawl. Hey, yo, let's crawl. Hey, yo, let's crawl. Hey, let's crawl. Hey, yo, let's crawl.
We're almost home on Cuse Countdown. Sam Lebowitz, Leo Silverman, Spencer Pierce previewing SU and UAlbany. But before they can play their 4 quarters, we're going to run through ours. Our first quarter today, SU must be dealing with some insomnia because they look tired, especially against Notre Dame with those late-night travel issues. The ability to bounce back from early deficits for SU just doesn't look to be there, Leo. So is it time for some caffeine?
Gosh, Sam, I wish caffeine would just fix these issues, but I mean, come on, you look at the last time they had one of their worst losses. It was that 11-20 loss to Virginia, and then they came out against Army, who they're supposed to be, favored against. Everyone thought they were going to get that bounce back win in the Dome, and they get caught napping. So you got to make sure to not treat this UAlbany team, while they're not Army, as some easy win.
Yeah, you're right. And guess what? They have been outscored in the first quarter this year. Let me make sure this is right. 29-11. And when this team gets down, they stay down. And that is the personality of a losing team. You have to face a little adversity on your way, right? And for them to be down like they were in this past game against Notre Dame, 2-0, 3-0, 4-0, 5-0, 9-0, and not show any fight is concerning. And I really think that that's on Gary Gate.
And Notre Dame was more of the same for an SU team that has struggled on the road this year. They're 1-3, and that only one win on the road was out of conference against Stony Brook. And maybe Syracuse just sleeps better in their own beds, Spencer? I don't know. Albany isn't too far down the road. It is still a road game, though, right?
Stony Brook. Whoop-de-doo. Oh. They beat Stony Brook on the road. It's still New York State. That shouldn't even count as an away game. They took a bus, probably.
It's further than Albany.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. And guess what? If comfortable in their own beds, they're not even good in their own beds. They're not good anywhere. This team is bad. B-A-D. Bad.
Yeah, and Spencer, when they leave the state in some of these road games we've seen, you go down 1-8 to UVA.
Bad.
You go down 0-9 to Notre Dame in the first quarter.
Double
so right
bad.
off the bat, terrible outside the state. So just terrible road woes. What else more do you need to say?
They're just bad everywhere. That's really all there is.
I mean, there's still room left in this season. I mean, they've been inconsistent. I don't know.
Sam, look at the goal difference. I mean, 16.6 versus 9.5. Come on.
I understand. I know they've been bad on the road, but to say they're a bad lacrosse team, I think there's too much talent here. I think Spencer's being a little harsh on it.
That's a Spencer thing.
So I'm always the bad guy. I always look crazy until the thing I say happens.
Well, someone's got to be the bad cop. Looking past Albany for a moment, let's move on, guys. The Syracuse schedule is not getting any easier. 4 games left after the Danes, all 4 ranked opponents. That includes number 6 Cornell next week, and a season-closing rematch against those boogeymen from Notre Dame. Time is running out, Leo, is basically what I'm trying to get to.
Time is running out. The only saving grace for this SU team, we just talked about road woes. Thank God, Spencer, 3 of these games are in the Dome. I know how you feel about the team, but they were at least better at home. You have to admit that. 3 of them 4 at the Dome. But listen, some of these matchups, UVA, reigning champ, already lost to them. Notre Dame in the Final Four last season. We know how that game went in South Bend. And as we've seen with history, Syracuse has not been very good against Notre Dame, even in the Dome. So this schedule is about to be brutal, and they're going to have to find some big, big wins.
4 ranked teams, 4 letters in ugly. UGLY. This is going to get ugly. Syracuse is going to win their last game on April 7th of 2022. That you can put that down.
Put it here
Sharpie.
first. Sharpie.
Yeah.
He's serious, Sam.
Effort and ugly. I'm learning how to spell all these big new words today on Cuse Countdown. But we are still playing a game here against UAlbany. So at the end of 4 quarters, our 4th and final quarter, predictions. After 60 minutes, Leo, who is going to win this game?
Sam, I like your logic with staying in New York State, and this UAlbany team is, not an Army like we keep talking about they got caught against. So 14-9 is what I'm going to go with for this win against SU. Listen, I trust Gary Gate and this, coaching staff made of some of the best lacrosse players in collegiate history to get a win against the UAlbany team while we're underestimating them are nothing compared to some of these better wins that Syracuse has had. This team beat Duke. They cannot lose to the Great Dane, Spencer.
I'm with you. It may not seem like I was with you. 16-11 is my final score. But like I said, April 7th, 2022 will be the Syracuse University Orange men's lacrosse team last win of the season. They're not beating any of those ranked teams. I really think that they need to get out to a hot start to this game. And if they do, I'm not so crazy anymore, am I?
Freezing cold takes. Watch this guy.
We'll see how it plays out after this game, but for this game, we got a clean sweep on the CC desk. I got 13-8 in favor of Syracuse. Time to close up shop here. It's a 7 p.m. opening face-off between Syracuse and UAlbany. That's an Orange Press Pass at 11 p.m. here on CitrusTV. For Leo Silverman and Spencer Pierce, I've been Sam Lebowitz. Enjoy the game.